Good greetings, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this virtual session on international disputes. I really appreciate your attending this from different parts of the world and from different time zones. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the organizer, the International Law Society, for inviting me to give a talk on Indo-Pakistan, Indo-China, and Bhutan-China territorial disputes, or more commonly referred to as border disputes, a topic of much interest and sensitivity for our region. Let me first begin by pointing out that in diplomatic practice, the term international dispute is used in both a wide and a narrow sense. In the broad sense, it refers to the most diverse conflict situations amongst countries. In the narrow sense, it refers to such conflicts as are characterized by concrete participants, by sufficiently clear mutual claims, and a specific object. The United Nations Charter utilizes the concept of territorial dispute as a situation, the continuation of which may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. Generally, the means used to resolve disputes between sovereign countries or sovereign states are based on agreements. The main role in resolving them is played by the direct agreements of the parties concerned. The procedures to achieve them include direct negotiations or other conciliatory procedures like good offices, mixed commissions, and so forth. More specifically, the UN Charter in Chapter 6, Article 33.1 recommends that the parties to any disputes, the continuance of which is likely to endanger the maintenance of international peace and security, shall first of all seek a solution by negotiations, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, resort to regional agencies or arrangements, or other peaceful means of their own choice. Actually, the provision of Chapter 6 of the Charter describes the consequences attached in the organization's institutional order to the fundamental principles proclaimed by the Charter's Article 2 on peaceful resolution of international disputes, which is in paragraph 3, and non-recourse to threats or the use of force in international relations, which is in paragraph 4. These provisions represent the process of pacification of the contemporary international society. So with the foregoing general background, let us now go to the specific disputes we plan to cover. On the map, the lines in red color represent disputed border, and the lines and areas in yellow color represent the disputed areas. I would like to submit a disclaimer, which is that please be mindful that the maps I'm sharing are obtained from internet sources and are for information purpose only. That is to give a rough idea about the geography. They do not guarantee accuracy. This particular map provides a bit more detail about the region we intend to cover. I give you some time to just for you to have a glance. Now let's start. Let's start with the northwestern segment. On this segment, we have there is this Jammu and Kashmir, which is currently split into Indian territory, with the state of Jammu Kashmir, which is actually just a large slice of Kashmir. There is Pakistani territory, the northern areas, and Chinese territory, the Aksai Chin, which was ceded by Pakistan to China in 1964. Portions of Kashmir thus are under the de facto administration of China, India, and Pakistan. India claims sovereignty over all of the Jammu and Kashmir, as does Pakistan. China only holds claim over and administers currently Aksai Chin. India does not recognize Pakistan's 1964 ceding of the Aksai Chin to China. Then in the northwestern segment, we have the Lahaul and Spiti and Kinnaur districts in India. They are in the state of Himachal Pradesh, and these are claimed by China as part of Tibet. And we have also Barahoti in Chamoli district in Uttarakhand state of India, which is claimed by China and also as part of Tibet. On the eastern segment, we have Arunachal Pradesh, Chumbi Salient, and Doklam. With regard to Arunachal Pradesh, it is controlled by India, but China claims most of it, and it claims it as part of Tibet. Here, it may be noteworthy that the United States recognizes Arunachal Pradesh as Indian territory. Then there is this Chumbi Salient. The contention lies in Bhutan's west along China's Chumbi Salient area. Bhutan and China continue negotiations to establish a common boundary alignment to resolve territorial disputes arising from substantial cartographic discrepancies. And then we have the last one, Doklam, which is a valley near the tri-junction of India, China, and Bhutan, and that is bounded by Ha Valley of Bhutan, Chumbi Valley of Tibet, and Sikkim. It is a disputed territory and is claimed both by Bhutan and China. This table shows the Indian districts that border China. Those are in red are actually the districts that are bordering China. And this table, the list in this table shows the areas and countries that exercise control over the specific areas. In some districts, some areas, there is control of India. In some other areas, there is China, and some areas are mixed control. I think it would be also useful to add that on October 31, 2019, through the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act, the state of Jammu and Kashmir formally transitioned into two union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. I will, however, not be able to discuss the ramifications of those changes because of our time constraint. I would simply point out that the reorganization changed some dynamics. Now let us review briefly the legal instruments that are in force or are in the making. The first one is the UN resolution. In consideration of India-Pakistan dispute that had started after the partition, on April 21, 1948, the United Nations Security Council adopted Resolution 47, an important resolution affecting the situation in Kashmir. The resolution included two parts. The first part instructed the UN Commission proceed to the Indian subcontinent to mediate between India and Pakistan. The second part of the resolution related to restoring peace and conducting a plebiscite. And this second part involved three steps. First, Pakistan was to use its best endeavors to secure the withdrawals of all tribesmen and Pakistani nationals, putting an end to the fighting in the state. Second, India was to progressively reduce its forces to the minimum level required for keeping law and order only. The resolution also laid down principles that India was to follow in administering law and order in consultation with the Commission, using local personnel as far as possible. And third, India was to invite all the major political parties to participate in the state government. The idea was to have a ministerial level coalition. India was then to appoint a plebiscite administrator nominated by the United Nations with a range of powers, including powers to deal with the two countries and ensure and conduct plebiscite. There have been more than 15 resolutions since 1948. That is, after the resolution 47, there have been more than 15 resolutions, but problems have continued to persist. In 2020, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited India and called for the implementation of this Security Council resolutions on Kashmir, including the holding of a plebiscite. But despite many declarations, decisions, and resolutions reiterating the same messages, solutions have not yet been found, and the scope and status of the recommendation included in Resolution 47 have not changed. Let's now go to India and China part and discuss briefly the legal instruments between the two countries. Between the two countries, the first important agreement was in 1954, the Panchashil Agreement. And under this agreement, Tibet was recognized. But unfortunately, this agreement could not be renewed, was not renewed because of a war between India and China in 1962. Other the legal instruments between India and China also include border-related agreements. For instance, the 1988 agreement under which India and China, they established joint working group on the boundary question. There are also agreements specific to trade. In 1991, the memorandum on the resumption of border trade. In 1992, the protocol on entry and exit procedures for border trade. And 2003, the memorandum on expanding border trade. Similarly, there were some confidence building measures. In 93, for example, Border Peace and Tranquility Agreement was signed. In 1996, the Agreement on Military Confidence Building Measures was signed. In 2005, the Protocol for the Implementation of Military Confidence Building Measures was signed. In 2012, the Agreement on the Establishment of a Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on Border Affairs was signed. In 2013, the Border Defense Cooperation Agreement was signed. And as recently as 2020, the 5-point statement was also issued. As can be seen, many agreements have been signed between India and China. But because of time constraint, I cannot discuss each one of them in detail. However, I would like to say that it would be safe to mention, to indicate that all these agreements listed on the screen focus on the desire of both parties to qualitatively upgrade their relationship at all levels and in all areas, to address differences through a peaceful and mutually acceptable manner, to build confidence, to avoid to hamper the overall development of bilateral relations, arriving at package settlement, and especially ensuring no war between the two countries. No war between the two countries. It would be important to note that these agreements that have all been adhered to in most border incidents. There were many, and the agreements have been adhered to in most incidents, except for the 2020 skirmishes during which serious violations occurred. Now let's go to China-Bhutan legal arrangement. With regard to Bhutan and China, there are two agreements of significance. Under the 1998 agreement for maintaining peace on the border, China affirmed its respect for Bhutan's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And both parties sought to build ties based on the Panchshir. This was a very important agreement. And in 2021, a memorandum of understanding was signed, which provided for a three-step roadmap to expedite boundary talks. By the way, these boundary talks were first initiated in 1984. The talks, however, could not cover the tri-junction area of India, Bhutan, and China, because that would need India's participation too. Finally, let me mention that with regard to all the agreements discussed earlier in this session, things have progressed very slowly, but negotiations continue in their own pace. Slow, but they are happening. It is difficult to predict when all the parties will come to a conclusion and resolve their disputes. We can only but be optimistic and hope that resolutions will be there, following which the maintenance of peace and security will be possible. I would stop here, and if you have any questions, I would like to take them. And I also would like to thank you very much for your patience.